We're back talking golf, Prime Sports Network. Another week on the PGA Tour without a major. That's unfortunate. But it is what it is. The PGA Championship is behind us. 2 more majors to go. We're actually going to take a look at the U.S. Open's futures and Open Championship futures. We'll do that just for a little bit. And, of course, we will also preview this week's event, the Charles Schwab Challenge. How's it going, Jared?
It's going good. It's always tough the week after a major to kind of get up for the next tournament.
Sure is.
And for me it's especially tough when I spent 3 days at Oak Hill watching that all go down. So, but I'm by the time Thursday rolls around, I'll be excited for the Charles Schwab.
Yeah, we talked about this off the air. I think you definitely ended up having a much better time on site as it was as a television show. There just wasn't enough really good drama once Brooks Koepka took over on Saturday, so all day Sunday. Unfortunately, when Koepka wasn't really in the front 9, when Koepka didn't get going, that was the opportunity for somebody to make a move, and nobody made a move. And then as soon as they got to the back 9, then Scheffler started making a move, and as soon as he started making a move, then Koepka started opening the gap, and then, it just never got anywhere close enough. The only time it got even remotely close was when Scheffler hit the birdie putt on 18 to make it a 3-stroke lead, but even at that point, you knew it was over.
What about Hovland? It's funny. We consumed this tournament 2 completely different ways. You obviously saw way more shots than I did on Sunday. I'm standing in holes and following some guys around. But as someone who had some money on Brooks, it seemed like he would get out to a 2 or 3 shot lead, and then Vic kind of kept punching back, and he cut it to 1 multiple times. But then it was just kind of a vintage. This was like a 2018, 2019 Brooks Koepka type performance. I thought. At a major, but from what I saw and from what I've read, and I still want to go back and watch the Sunday telecast, but it sounded like Vic played a really strong round on Sunday until he got to 16 and made that mistake in the bunker.
Yeah, probably the reason why it didn't go down as like it wasn't as dramatic might have just been because of the fact that it's not like Victor Hovland is some sort of a marketable player at this point yet. And sure. Brooks Koepka is Brooks Koepka. When he gets the lead in a major, I don't care, even though it's been a couple of years, he just doesn't relinquish that. And so if that was Scottie Scheffler, that was a stroke back. Or John Rahm, that was a stroke back. Well, that's a completely different story. But because it was Victor Hovland, I just don't think that it really gotcha the way that you might think based on the score. It wasn't like he had a 4-stroke lead or a 5. It wasn't a romp. It was a pretty close 1-2 battle for most of the day. It's just, I think it was because maybe of who it was too. So,
and I tell you, Hovland is going to be fascinating to watch now. I mean, we talked about it on our preview show. We talked about it on Friday night. Just that this is now 3 straight majors where he's been right there.
Yes.
And to do what he did in that bunker on 16 on Sunday, just how he responds to this, it's going to be fascinating. I could easily, we'll get to the futures here in a second. I could easily see him winning the U.S. Open. I could see him winning the Open, or I could see him just being one of these guys who, had a few chances and just never gets it done. I lean more towards the former, that he's gonna win a major soon at this point. But it's just going to be super interesting to see kind of where he goes from here.
Yes, I have my idea of what I think, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We've also talked about, I think we might have even went over this on Friday night, about how, because I think we did talk about some of the futures for upcoming majors, including the Open Championship. And I've said it probably a handful of times since January that I'm saving Victor Hovland for the Open Championship. And now, of course, I feel even that much better. Yeah, I think we talked about it because I was like, well, I hope he doesn't win because I'd rather have him. So futures-wise, that's actually, and that's kind of a good segue because that's something I'm already looking at. Am I right? So he didn't win
Yep.
here, but yes, now it's just his third straight really good major event, and I think he's going to stand. If you take a look at it, you know, he has a better record, without a doubt, even though it's very small. He's a better record at the Open Championship than he does the U.S.
Yep.
Open, and this is the other reason I liked him early in the season. Remember, he hasn't won on U.S. soil yet, so for him
Yeah.
to pick the U.S. Open as his first U.S. soil, compared to the fact that he's always been very good overseas whenever he goes overseas and plays these matches. That's why I just think that the Open Championship, and I believe he's like still 28-1, which was the number that you talked about on Friday night.
He is, yeah. I think he might be down to 25 on. I was looking at this afternoon. I think he might be down to 25 on DraftKings, but you can get him at 28 in some places. The one thing I would say about Hovland at the U.S. Open is POA is his best putting surface, and those greens will be POA out in L.A. So, I do think the Open is a better spot for him. I also would not be shocked if he picks up that first major at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, so he's going to be somebody that you want to take a stab at futures wise. Koepka, if you didn't get him when you got him, it's over, because you still have him for the U.S. Open.
I do. I got him at 46-1 for both the PGA and the U.S. Open.
There you go.
So I'm feeling good about that. Cashed in the first one. I doubt he goes back to back, but
yeah,
one out of two is good with me.
That's more than good. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the thing, is that because it's also a little bit tougher now even than it was when he did it. Even though it was like 5 years ago, it's still tougher now. And he's still, I mean, he'd have to go out and do it to prove that he's the player he was 5 years ago. I don't know if he is. It's hard to tell because he's not on the PGA Tour. Not that he ever did well on the PGA Tour except for the majors anyway. So, you know, that's something I guess we'll find out in the U.S. Open, because before last year, 4th, 2nd, 1st, and 1st in his previous 4 U.S. Opens, starting in 21, and also a pretty solid Open Championship resume, but not nearly as good as the U.S. Open.
Yeah, so Brooks is the 4th favorite now for the U.S. Open at 14-1. I think he should be the 3rd favorite. To me, it'd be Rahm 1, Scheffler 2. I would put Brooks, Koepka 3 for the U.S. Open ahead of Rory. But
yeah, as far as the U.S. Open, because I don't. McIlroy's 10-1, right?
Yeah, Rory's 10-1 still, and Brooks is 14-1.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't love Brooks at 14-1, but I think that's probably a pretty fair number.
No, it is, absolutely. I think it's fair compared to the fact that you just mentioned 10-1 on McIlroy. Now I know he's got 4 straight top 10s at U.S. Opens, but I just feel he's even a better play at the Open Championship, because, and that's going to be a big story once we get closer to it. The fact that he won at Royal Liverpool back in 2014, the last time they played the Open Championship at that venue. So that's going to be, a likely reason why a lot of people are going to like him. But I can see
there's always some spotlight on Rory. It's funny. It's funny how that works. Masters, it's the Grand Slam. PGA this year, it's the Rochester connection, and then he's going to have that going for him at the Open. So he can never come in flying under the radar.
Unfortunately, I do not see any good bargains anymore for the U.S. Open, with the exception. I'm saying bargains because I don't believe Xander Schauffele or Max Homa's odds are going to drop any. You're getting home at 25-1. That's not going to drop because of his U.S. Open resume. And Schauffele can't go less than 20-1 because of unless he wins next week. Because of the fact that he has 5 top 10s out of 6 U.S. Opens, which is an amazing record. But I just can't see Schauffele that much lower unless he plays really well and maybe even wins a Memorial.
Yep, I agree. I don't see any value popping right now among the top guys. If anything, it would be Hovland for me at 25-1. Even that, though, I think worst case he ends at 20-1. I would think. So I don't think you're going to lose a whole lot. Maybe he drifts to 30-1 by the time we get to tournament week. I I did make a U.S. Open bet this morning. I bet Bryson DeChambeau at 60-1.
Okay, that's a good
I
number.
mean, it almost be like what we just saw with Brooks, right? Like everyone thought Brooks was kind of done. He pops at the Masters and then he comes out and wins the next tournament.
Yep.
Same deal with Bryson. This was the kind of the first time this past week where he was back in the mix. And he already has a U.S. Open win on his resume. It's going to be a long, tough golf course. It's going to fit Bryson well. And you look at his numbers from this past week, like he did it in a legit way. It was not like he, had this crazy putting week or, chipped in a bunch of times. The ball striking numbers, the off the tee stuff was really good. The approach stuff was really good. So, we'll see what happens over the next month or so. But I think 60-1 is pretty nice.
That's a good
one right now.
Absolutely,
yep.
I agree with you. That might be the best one. I think also I probably, and again, I don't think you have to see with DeChambeau. That's good to get it now, because if he goes on and wins Live this week, after competing in the PGA. I bet you that drops in half. So,
yeah, I could see him closing between 30 and 40-1 for sure.
Yeah, so that's a good one. Right now, I'd probably have to like if I was going to pick and start doing some parlays for the U.S. Open at low numbers. Obviously, that's where you want to get them. I just go back to Scheffler again at 10-1. I think he's my play right now. He's got the second last year, the seventh before that. He's right there for a U.S. Open championship. He had one bad day. It was in those terrible conditions. If it wasn't for Brooks Koepka, playing like he did, Scheffler probably wins that. He probably wins. So
it felt like Scheffler played his C game this past week, and he still came tied for second. The run he's on is crazy. Yeah. I'd probably still favor Rahm. I know I was on Rahm last week. You were on Scheffler. You obviously got that one, but Rahm is his record in California is really strong. Obviously, he won the U.S. Open at Torrey. So if I was picking between those two, I'd give the slight lean to Rahm. Scheffler is actually the betting favorite right now, at least on DraftKings.
Okay.
Scheffler's plus 850. Yeah. Rahm is plus 900.
I don't know, why is Justin Thomas still where he is? I mean, he's the fifth choice. He's ahead of Schauffele, who has that incredible U.S. Open record. I mean, we just talked about it. Well, Home is down to 20, I see now at DraftKings. But even Morikawa and Hovland, I'm sorry, but I'm not putting Justin Thomas over any of those guys.
Yeah, that's a strange one. JT, POA is his best putting surface by a wide margin. He's actually a negative putter on Bent and Bermuda. He's positive on POA. But the books don't usually take that into account at this point. So I don't know what it is that is making him the fifth favorite now. It's that he definitely does not deserve to be anywhere close to the fifth favorite.
Name recognition. That's about it. And then at Royal Liverpool at Open Championship again, Hovland is a good choice. I don't think either of these odds are going to drop unless. Matter of fact, let's see, because I'm looking at it Open Championship, we got a while to go, but Fleetwood at 28-1, fourth last year, runner up in 2019, Hatton at 33-1. He has three good results since 2016, including 11th last year. So those guys with those odds I like, and then also keep in mind. And I know it's a long shot, but Sergio, he's how badly he wants to win the Open Championship. Sergio and Fowler both runner up to Rory at Liverpool. So and Garcia is 100-1 right now. So keep an eye on that. Not that I even think those odds are going to drop much unless Sergio wins a live event, and that could cut in half. And Scott's 66-1. Adam Scott 66-1 to win the Open Championship. I give him a much better chance to win the Open Championship than the U.S. Open. Rose, by the way, 50-1 in the U.S. Open and 40-1 in the Open Championship. So those are some odds that, again, I'm not sure how much are going to change between now and then, but those are some odds that I'd be interested in.
Yeah, so I got to be honest. I don't remember much about Liverpool, which obviously we're going to want to dig into before we, make a bunch of these bets. But
It's another easy golf course.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the courses are very similar out there. It really depends on whether the wind kicks up or not.
Yep.
I'm just scrolling through the odds though, and Sung Jae Im is 60-1 right now for the Open Championship, and he has he's played 2 Opens. He's missed the cut and come in 81st, and it's probably not a great course fit for him. But just based on the fact that I think Sung Jae is like a top 10 player in the world, and he's down at 60-1, like. If I was making a bet right now, and I haven't yet, I would just blindly bet Sung Jae because he's 60-1. I don't think he should ever be 60-1.
All right, so that's again what we just want to take a look at. But like I was saying, as far as parlays with the shorter numbers, I'd probably go Scheffler for me at the U.S. Open. I would probably, I'd probably look at McIlroy at the Open, but not much as Scheffler at the U.S. Open. Yep. And I'm not so sure I'm really that high on anyone. Oh, and Koepka. Why not? Koepka at 14-1 at the U.S. Open, too. And I'd rather take Koepka at the U.S. Open than the Open Championship. So,
Scheffler feels like he should have a good game for the Open, just with his creativity around the greens. Scheffler is almost like a better version of Spieth to me around the greens. So he kind of interests me if I was looking for one of those top dogs as part of a parlay.
Okay.
I might go Scheffler at the Open.
All right. Now, let's talk a little bit one and done because you got a big one with Brooks Koepka last week. Yep. So you're back in good shape now.
Yeah, my good team had Brooks, so that was nice. And my team that's not doing well had Finau, so that one keeps going in the wrong direction. But I got one of these teams that's doing pretty well.
Yeah. So this week's field, not bad. Yeah. Considering it's right after a major and it's not one of those big events. But next week's a big event, Memorial, and and the interesting thing is there are going to be some players, like for instance. I don't see Hatton at either event. Of course, Rahm is not playing this week, but he'll be playing next week. Cantlay will also be playing. Most of the guys are playing next week, which makes sense because again, it's a much bigger price. I don't see Spieth yet though, for Memorial. So he might be taking the week off. So I guess my point is that even though and it's early, we still got time for these players to decide what to do. But as of now, even though it's a big event price wise, I don't think it's going to be as crammed of a field as we've seen in these other similar events, even like the RBC, which everybody played right after the Masters. So.
That's surprising. I hadn't looked at the field for next week yet, but Memorial's always been, even before it became elevated, it was a big one. So I guess I'm a little surprised those guys might be skipping.
Yeah, and again, it is early, but that's what I'm seeing. Matter of fact, I don't even see Hovland.
Yeah, I like that course for Hovland too. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play, but he's playing this week.
This week, yeah. So and again, so Spieth's playing this week, Hovland's playing this week, so it's possible that they're not going to play. Matter of fact, I don't see Finau for next week.
I wonder if that's not a finalized.
No, it's not final. I mean, that's not going to be finalized until Friday, right. But it's the list right now. So
interesting.
Yeah, it just gives you a little bit of a. And look, it's not like, I mean, what's after Memorial?
Then it's where am I? Then it's the Canadian Open. Then it's the U.S. Open. So
okay, so maybe there are guys who might want to play the Canadian Open. I don't know. Isn't Finau good at the Canadian Open?
Don't they change? They change the course for that.
Even though they changed the course, so I'm pretty sure
he's been good.
I believe so. Maybe that's why he may not play next week.
Yeah, could be.
He can't play every week.
Finau came second at the Canadian Open last year, and he was also fifth back in 2017.
There you go.
So I mean, he has a pretty good record there.
So maybe that's it. Maybe he doesn't want to play every week because you can't, because you gotta take a week off between the PGA Championship and U.S. Open.
Right. Yeah. These guys need to skip at least one of these next three.
Yeah. So if you're going to play Canada, then maybe that's the thing right there. Maybe Spieth and Hovland are playing Canada. Who knows?
Yeah, could be.
Okay. So one and dones, and yeah, I this one is a little bit tough this week because it's not a big event, so you're not going to take a Scheffler. Right. I guess if you don't have Jordan Spieth, if you haven't used him yet, this would probably be a good week to use him. What do you think?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I think historically this is Spieth's best course. As far we look at the course history here, he's number one on the list. So the argument against it would be if you think Spieth is someone who you should play at an elevated event, which could be a good argument.
Well, what do you think?
To me, if I still had Spieth, I'd be using him here. I don't think I have him on either team. I'm trying to see. So he's been used on 47% of teams. So I would think he's going to be very popular this week. So that's something to consider if you're playing from behind at this point. That might be a reason to not use Spieth because he's I would guess he's going to be the most popular pick this week.
All right, let's go ahead and tell you what. Take a look at your stats. So here are Jared's stats. You obviously got the top 10 in course history the last 5 years. Jordan Spieth, as you said, he's at the top. So there's the top 10, and you can pause this so you can take your time looking at it. Top 10 on par fours from 400 to 450 the last 12 months. That's over the last year. And you can see Tony Finau is at the top of that list. So what about the par fours from 400 to 450?
Yeah, so 7 of the holes this week fall in that range. This is a Colonial is about the exact opposite of what we saw at Oak Hill last week. This is a shorter. It's not short, but it's a shorter course. It's more of a positional course. That those 400 to 450 yard par fours. That's on the shorter end for the PGA Tour. So we're not going to see these 480, 500 yard par fours this week. So this is more of a not to say the long hitters can't win here. They obviously can, but this is a course that brings the shorter hitters back into play, which I think you see if you look at the course history. There's Spieth's not super long. Emiliano Grillo is not super long. Colin Morikawa is not a super long player. Brian Harmon is 5th or 6th. Rory Sabatini 7th. CT Pan 8th. Like these are all guys on the shorter end off the tee. So it's that type of course where these type of guys can play well.
Yeah, and as far as the course itself, I mean, you throw out a year or two, and the last 4 years, especially last year, the course is pretty good. It's a nice test. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's not that difficult compared, especially to what just happened last week. So I think it's kind of a perfect scoring golf course. So
yep, yeah, it's a good event, and like we said, the field's better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely, and I think that's one thing to keep an eye on is that I think it's probably better. I haven't looked at it. I think it's got to be better than in years past. And even though that's the case, we'll get into some trends that maybe counter that. But again, for the one and done, Spieth is got to be at the top there. What about some potential mid-range guys? Not like sleeper one and dones. Like if you think that you want to hold on to a Scheffler or even a Spieth or any of the top 5 or 6 guys, who would be that second, phase group that you would consider for a one and done?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure on my good team, I'm going to use Tommy Fleetwood. And we'll talk about him more because he's also a bet for me this week. I just think he's playing well, and this is a good course fit for him. I think Justin Rose is a good. I think this type of tier, the guys that are 25 to 35 to 1 in the odds. So Fleetwood, Rose. I think Ricky Fowler, man, he disappointed massively last week. I never thought that was a great fit for him. He's just, not long enough. I didn't think to really compete at Oak Hill, but he was playing excellent coming in, and I do think this is a better course for him. So, Fleetwood, Rose, and Fowler are definitely two guys I would be looking at.
And then if you want to roll the dice, there's one particular player that I think is your roll the dice guy that not many people are going to take, that I knew 100% sure was going to be on your list this week. And I'm definitely going to be putting money on him, and that's Cam Davis. So
Love it.
He's got to be a guy that, to me, I think he's the perfect sleeper this week on a one and done.
Totally. If you're playing from behind, Cam Davis will be, 2% owned. And I could definitely see him winning this thing.
All right. Now, we'll go into Davis and his stats in just a minute. Some other key trends to note. Americans have dominated this event, winning 17 of 20. So that's a lot. What you also see, though, is this is a course that, like I was saying before, that even though you might not have had the tough field as we're going to get this year, the interesting thing is when you take a look at the average ranking of the players, that the first-time winners, the last 9 winners averaged 31st in the world rankings. That includes, we've seen a first rank, second rank, 5th rank, 10th rank. And if you take Daniel Berger's win in 2020, that's that COVID year where things got skewed because of his rankings. The last 8 winners have averaged 21st in the world rankings. So there have been some top players that are playing well that come here and win. Now, it doesn't mean it was a packed field. It just means that good players win here. And this is not one of these golf courses where you're going to get guys that are, over 100 in the world ranking very often. There are a couple here and there, but it's been a while.
Yeah, again, I think that's the case for these courses that are on the tougher side, right? Like, we're not saying this is an Oak Hill type test, but it's not going to be a 23 under. And I think those are the type of tournaments where you can get the longer shots.
All right. And then another thing to keep in mind, if you're looking at someone like a Jordan Spieth, who's won here before, only 2 of the last 17 winners had previously won here. And that includes all first-time winners in the last 10. So we haven't seen a repeat winner since Zach Johnson in 2012, Mickelson also in 2008. That's it for the last 17 years. But, maybe Jordan Spieth will join that club. He definitely has the ability, based on his record here, that you want to keep an eye on. And the average number of appearances by first-time winners since 2001 is 6. Now, even though that's the case, keep in mind that 2 of the last 3 winners were making just their 3rd appearance. And we have not seen, because there were a few guys that I was considering, and I'm probably going to throw a buck on. Most of them are not on my picks, but I'm going to throw a buck on because the odds are big, but they're first-time participants, and they've also never won a PGA Tour event. And you have to go back to Sergio Garcia. He's the last player to win this event, making his first appearance. Again, that's 2001. And when he won it, he became the first player since 1989 to earn his maiden PGA Tour win at this golf course. So that combination tells you that it's a little rare to have a player that's never played here and has never won a PGA Tour event. Even so, there are several players I'm going to throw a buck on that we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, this course has the 8th most predictive course history on tour. so it's on the upper end of, like, if guys have played well here in the past, there's a better chance they're going to continue to play well.
By the way, I know we have some of the viewers have commented on your stats. Last week, one of your key stats was the strokes gained total at the PGA Championship the last 5 years. You remember who was first?
Brooks.
So, how about that? We have a viewer comment from Gaming with Homie One Kenobi. Homie One commented it last week, and we shouted out his name and his comment, so he came back with even a bigger comment. I appreciate the shout out, guys. Love your content and the unique segments you provide. I consume a lot of golf tournament breakdowns each week, and he went over the list. So I feel like I know who gives out valuable information every week. Let's face it, the difference between winning and losing golf bets on most weeks is highly dependent on the valuable information you gather and the experts you listen to, like yourselves. Can't thank you enough, and good luck this week. So, thank you, Gaming with Homie Juan Kenobi. Did I send you that comment?
I saw it. Yeah, I think I shot him a reply. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah, he listed some of the big names in the golf handicapping industry. So happy to be
Part of that?
mentioned with those guys. Yep.
And also with Koepka's win, that keeps me in first place in our fantasy team.
Saw that.
Boy, the Live Tour, that we thought that was just going to be like a little bit of side thing.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the Live Tour players, you'd be running away with the fantasy season so far. But Brooks Koepka's been doing a good job for me on the Live Tour.
You should start a Live Tour show.
Yeah, right.
You're the expert there.
Yeah, I don't even watch it all that much. All right, so let's break it all down. So look, Scheffler's 4-1. We know he's the cream of the crop, but there's no way. And I know you feel the same. You can't take him at 4-1. He's coming off a major. He's playing next week, which is a big money event, and then his next event is probably the U.S. Open. So this is like one of the sandwich events that you can't imagine his psyche and his, I'm going to be there the way the other players are. He's still talented enough that he doesn't have to be on his A game like you even talked about last week. But still, at 4-1, I just can't do it.
Yeah, and he's coming off a tough PGA Championship. Let me tell you, I was out there all day Saturday. That took a lot out of me in the rain. And listen, it's a Texas tournament, so I'm not saying Scheffler is not going to care about this, but there's got to be some bit of letdown from last week. And yeah, he obviously could still win. He's the deserving favorite, but I'm definitely not going to bet him at 4-1.
Yeah, I think at this point of his career, when you play, and he plays like every Texas event, that it's basically, I don't think it's one of those, hey, I'm playing a Texas event, I got to get up for it. I just think it's one of those, I'm playing a Texas event because I want to give back. I want to be there. Yep. Just me being there is giving back to Texas and my community. And it's actually sometimes even a distraction because you can, more friends and so forth. So yeah, I don't look, if he's a different type of player, maybe, but he's the number one ranked player in the world. So I just don't look at it as he's going to be focused and winning this week because it's a Texas event.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So now you have Spieth 12-1, Finau, Hovland 14-1. And this is where we start with our picks because I have a pick here. And I am going in on Hovland. Yeah. I'm doing it. I think it's definitely still far enough away from either major. So it would be good for him to win before he gets into another major, kind of get that winning feeling. And, it is interesting, though, because if he doesn't play well this week, we might have to start thinking about like his reverse kind of resume, because heading into the year, he was doing really good and winning at all these other kind of like weak events. And then he'd get to the big events and he wouldn't show up. This year, all of a sudden, the weaker events, he's not showing up. And he's just dominating everything but a win in the big events. But I'm going to gamble that he is going to try, because he didn't win, so he's going to try to use that momentum this week. He played the golf course last year, was a solid 21st. So I'm only taking one player in this area, and so I figured I'm going to go with Hovland.
Yeah, again, he could go one of two ways from what happened to him on Sunday at Oak Hill. So I'm super curious to see how he plays this week. He obviously played the week after the Masters at Heritage and had the 59th place finish. I think as we talked about, that was just all poor putting. The ball striking was still good there. So yeah, I mean, again, I would not be surprised at all if he comes out and wins this after last week.
Now, Spieth, again, this is the reason why he is the man here. He's got 10 of 10 cuts, 8 of those top 10s, 3 runner-ups, and a win. So it's fantastic. And the 29th last week was really, if you're thinking of taking him this week, was really all you needed to see based on the injury from the week before.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say that we should definitely mention. He seemed legitimately questionable to play like last Wednesday because of that wrist injury. Ended up coming 29th at the PGA, and really he came 29th, losing strokes both around the green and putting, which, the around the green especially is rare for Spieth. He was actually the third best driver in the field last week. And he was also, well in the positive on approach. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that it doesn't seem like that wrist was an issue last week.
And then, and by the way, keep this in mind too. Jordan Spieth has only got 2 wins since 2018. So try to remember that when you're thinking about taking somebody at 12-1. All right.
Yep.
Finau at 14-1 made 7 of 7 cuts, all top 35s, 2 top 5s and a runner-up, 4th last year. Keep in mind, though, he only has 1 top 10 in the last 10 events, but that was his win in Mexico. So can he make it 2 top 10s and 11 with 2 wins? I doubt it, especially at 14-1. But what do you think about it?
Man, he was bad last week, and I followed him for his whole round on Friday and was not impressed. And then you just look at the numbers for the entire week. He lost strokes off the tee. He lost strokes on approach, which he hadn't lost strokes on approach since last August. So that's the type of thing, like, is this kind of the start of some struggles for Finau, or is he just going to bounce right back? He's probably going to bounce back, but still, 14-1 is just too small of a number for me.
Morikawa and M, 16-1, 18-1. Look, Morikawa continues to go in the wrong direction. No top 5s in his last 9. What is interesting about him taking him this week is he is in both of your stats, 5th in course history, 7th on the par 4 stats. It's not a bad idea. The only thing I'm worried about are the odds. That's all. But it's not a crazy idea. But also the other thing with Morikawa is he's still one of these players that generally seems to play better on the big events than he does in these types of events.
That's true, yeah. And Morikawa was good last week. He finished 26th. He gained across the board. He gained off the tee, on approach, around the green, and putting. So like he's killing me this year. His game's not too far off. He just hasn't had those like spike weeks that he had the previous couple of years when he was winning all those events. I do think this is a good course fit for him. Again, it's more of a accuracy, positional type golf course, which is where you want to play Morikawa. I didn't get to him as a bet. He'd be an interesting one and done guy if you are willing to use him at one of these smaller purse events. I think he's going to be low owned in one and done pools.
Yeah, that's a good idea as well. M is at 18-1. He has 1 top 5 on the PGA Tour this year. He has 2 top 15s in 4 appearances.
Yeah, he's the Sungjae is the low-priced guy I came closest to betting.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been betting him a bunch this year because he, the numbers look good, the finishes like he has.
You've been losing a lot of money on him this year. You have.
I have been, but man, he was horrible at Oak Hill. And I do wonder. We talked about the fact that he played in Korea the week before. I do wonder if that had some type of impact. I was hoping to get more of a discount on Sungjae after that horrible performance last week, and maybe he'd be 22, 25-1, but he's still at 18 right now. Again, maybe by Wednesday he drops to 22 or 25, then he might be worth a look because again he had been playing super well. This is a good again we want Sungjae on the shorter accuracy type courses, so I do think this is a good course fit for him. And like you said, he has played pretty well here, at least 2 of the last 3 years.
And then you have Homa and Burns, 22, 25-1. Homa hasn't showed much at this golf course though. No top 20s in 4 appearances. He doesn't have a top 5 either in his last 7 PGA Tour appearances. Was in contention until late on Friday and never got going on Saturday, and then he was done. Burns, keep this in mind, Burns was, in his 2 appearances on this golf course, first 2 appearances, was not under par. Matter of fact, he was a combined 14 over par. And then he came out of nowhere on this golf course. Matter of fact, he came out of nowhere on Sunday because he was still not doing anything on this golf course Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And this is the interesting round by round trends to keep this in mind. That Burns was 57th, 5 back after the first round. He was in 40th, 8 back after the second round, and was 17th. He got a lot closer, but was still 7 back after round 3, and still came from nowhere. Now, you might look at it and say a couple of things. First of all, to win back-to-back, not so easy. Secondly, you might just say, well, maybe he just had a really good day on this golf course, but the other 6 or 7 rounds here, he's just not very good. He's just, So maybe it's just one of those great days that every, players can have. But you are getting 25-1, which, it's better than Sungjae Im's odds.
Yeah, and Burns, has won quite a bit more than Sungjae in the past few years. So I will not fault anyone for making that bet. For me, it's just 2 straight missed cuts for Sam Burns, including a really horrible performance last week at the PGA. He's lost strokes on approach in each of those last 2 events. And even, heading into the win here last year, he finished 20th at last year's PGA Championship. He gained strokes on approach that week, gained strokes off the tee. So he was playing better coming into last year's Schwab.
And here and another trend to keep an eye on. And don't worry if you're not in first place, because the last 10 winners did not have a first round lead. The last 4 winners did not have a second round lead. And the last 3 winners did not have a third round lead. So not having the lead at this event, not a big deal. And that might help you out on live betting. So that's something to keep an eye on. All right. Now we get to an area where we're finally going to get to some picks here. And by the way, Rose is 30-1, Fowler's 30-1, Fleetwood's 30-1. You have Fleetwood as your top pick, and I have Fowler as my second pick. Neither one of us took Rose, who has 4 top 20s and 9 appearances, 2 top 5s. He won in 2018. As far as Fleetwood, I was definitely thinking about him as well. He was 35th last year, 1 over par, but he's definitely been playing well over his last 3 events.
Yeah, Tommy Fleetwood used to be like my Sungjae Im, a guy I would just bet all the time, and he obviously never cashed for me because he still has never won on the PGA Tour. So this is, I swear, it's the first time I've bet Tommy Fleetwood in like 2 years.
I'm usually the one that's taking Tommy Fleetwood, not you.
Yeah, I'm hopping back on the Tommy train here. I mean, he's playing exceptionally well. Top 18 in 3 straight tournaments and 4 of the last 5. He's gained straight. I use Fantasy National for my stats, and they'll highlight a stat in green if the guy is gained strokes, and it'll be red if he lost strokes. Fleetwood's screen is just all green right now. He's gaining off the tee, gaining on approach, gaining around the green, gaining putting, just playing really well. He's actually 9th in this field in strokes gained approach over the last 3 months, and like you said, 35th here last year in his first appearance. It's just another one of these shorter hitters who rely on the accuracy. I think a course like this gives Tommy his best chance to win a PGA tournament.
And you're probably going to use him in one of your one and dones.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with him in the one where I'm doing well, and I'll probably try to go off the board a bit more in the other one.
And then Ricky, I look at, like you said, I'm not concerned about what happened last week. So I'm going to use that to my advantage, the fact that I think I'm getting better odds because of it. Keep in mind, this is the first missed cut for Ricky Fowler since the Shriners in October. What did he do the very next week? He finished second at the Zozo, which is his best result in quite a long time, and still to this point. He's had some decent showings here Last few years, he hasn't played well here, but he hasn't played well at all the last couple of years. So that's kind of the reason I don't care about that. He does have some success on this golf course, including 5th back in 2012. So yeah, I figured why not take a stab at Ricky Fowler, and maybe the missed cut is a good thing because he's got an extra couple of days of rest.
He didn't have to play in the rain on Saturday. That's good. And even looking at the numbers from last week, I hadn't really looked at them yet, but he gained 3.4 strokes off the tee. Now he lost about a stroke on approach, but it was really the putter that let him down. So even last week, it wasn't like a worrisome performance. So yeah, I think he's still trending in the right direction for sure.
I have no idea why he changed his putting stance. I don't. He had just a.
I mean, he's been putting well. Let's see, what is it?
Is he back into the
six of his last 9 tournaments? He's gained strokes putting. So.
Okay, because I know. I mean, when he was rocking and rolling back in the day, he was like one of the best golfers on tour. Putters on tour, excuse me. So,
yep.
But obviously, now that he's playing better, facets of his game have improved, including his putting, which is important.
Yep, he definitely struggled putting last year, but this year he's been a lot better.
Okay, so now we have let's talk about Cam Davis. And Cam Davis, 7th last year here, and a really strong 4th last time out, which was on Sunday, yesterday at the PGA. He now has 3 top 10s in his last 5. That includes a 6th at the Players and a 4th at the PGA Championship. So those are 2 really tough golf courses. And he played this relatively tough golf course last year, and has been better each year here, making his 4th appearance, and you're getting 40 to 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was also 7th at the Heritage, three tournaments back. We talked about, we've talked about Cam Davis, and I think I said on the show, I've been waiting for him to just show signs of life so I could get back on him because I love Cam Davis. But I think we talked about the 6th at the Players was all putting, so at that point I still wasn't buying in. But at the Heritage, he gained 3.5 strokes off the tee and gained 4.2 strokes on approach. And then at the PGA Championship last week, in the best field in golf, he was the 5th best player off the tee, and he was the 9th best player on approach. So he was hitting it awesome. I also like the fact that these are bent grass greens, and Davis is a positive putter on bent grass. He's a negative putter on Bermuda and POA. So bent is definitely where you want to play Cam Davis.
All right. By the way, what's next week's? What's that surface next week?
Bent.
It's bent.
Okay.
Grass.
Yep.
All right. So we both like Davis, and you have him on your pick. I'm definitely putting good money on him this week as well. And let's move on to some more of our picks. I have at 60 to 1 Denny McCarthy, and at 50 to 1 you have Kurt Kitayama. So McCarthy, if you take a look at McCarthy, he's 9th on your par 4 stats. He's making his 5th appearance here. He's coming off his best finish here last year, which was 27th. And let's take, we didn't have to take anything out. Let's just take a look at his last 5 stroke play results. 29th last week, which is strong in a PGA Championship. 8th at Wells Fargo. 25th at RBC. 19th at Valspar. And 13th at the Players. That's real solid golf. And you're getting 60 to 1. So I kind of think that he makes a lot of sense here. And then you went with Kitayama.
Yeah, I like the McCarthy play. Like you said, he's playing well, and I think if there's a weakness in his game, it's just off the tee, and particularly distance off the tee. And this is a course where you don't really need that. So I think it should be a good fit for McCarthy. Kitayama is funny. Like I don't like his course fit here because he is a bomber and he can get wonky off the tee, which is not what you want to do here. But I think 50 is too big of a number for a guy who won Bay Hill less than 3 months ago, and 2 is coming off an awesome week at the PGA, finished 4th, and that was on the 3rd best performance on approach. He was the 3rd best player in the field on approach last week. So if he can, carry that iron play over, I just think 50 is too big for a guy who, again, just won a big event 3 months ago.
I like it. So yeah, the only question though is can Kurt Kitayama win twice?
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
It would be something.
75-1. We both have picks here. So I have Harris English, and you have Emiliano Grillo, and Grillo is definitely somebody that I was thinking about as well. Because if you look at Grillo, he has 4 top 25s and 7 appearances, 2 top 10s, 1 top 5. Yes, he missed a cut last week at the PGA, but before that, 23rd, 5th, and 7th. And then for English, this was actually a little bit of a surprise to me that I actually went with English. I don't go with him all that often, but he's played okay here. 3 top 20s out of 7, 2 top 5s, and a runner-up. And he's had these like little hit and misses. 3rd at the Wells Fargo, runner-up a few months ago at Bay Hill. So I just looking for, because I wasn't going to take Spieth and Hovland, even though I really like Spieth this week, as I should. I needed to find another kind of bargain somewhere. And I thought, 75-1 was a pretty good bargain for the 39th ranked player in the world.
Yeah, English had that awesome approach week at Wells Fargo 2 starts back. Then he still gained on approach last week at the PGA despite missing the cut. It was, the other aspect of his game that weren't there. So the iron play is encouraging. With Grillo, you said it. I mean, this is just a guy who's playing well. Again, miscut at PGA, but kind of like Ricky Fowler. That's just that Grillo's not long enough to compete at Oak Hill. But like you said, 7th, 5th, and 23rd in his 3 prior starts, and the irons were red hot in all 3 of those starts. So he's playing well, and then he's coming to a course where he's played well at in the past. 3 top 20s and 2 top 10s here. So kind of a mix of recent form and course history with Grillo.
And then we get to our long shots. And my only long shot, I got one, and that's the 110-1 shot, Sepp Straka. And Straka had that solid 7th last week. His first top 10 in his last 8 appearances. He's a streaky player. So I figured after that appearance, I know he hasn't made the cut here yet in 2 appearances, but they weren't that bad. It was 1 under par and 2 over par. So he just missed the cut in both of those attempts. Meanwhile, you have 3 long shots, 150-1. Was it Bhatia, Eckroat, yep, and 180-1 Hubbard. So tell me a little about your thinking there.
Yeah, I'm going to keep betting Akshay Bhatia if they're going to keep him over 100-1. I just think he's a big time talent who is going to win in the near future, and he definitely pops in the numbers I look at. Akshay Bhatia is the 6th best approach player in this field over the last 3 months. He's also 15th on those par 4s from 400 to 450. And he has 2nd and 4th place finishes over the last 3 months. So he's been there. So again, 130-1, that's a pretty easy bet.
Well, you're getting 150-1 now.
Oh, 150-1, man. I might have to put more on him than I did this morning.
And then Eckroat at 150-1. Matter of fact, Jan picked Eckroat up on our fantasy team last week.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is just 150-1 on a guy who was 2nd last time out at Byron Nelson, another Texas course. And he was also 5th at Punta Cana a few starts before that. That was obviously a weaker field, but a young player who has flashed a couple times now in his last few starts.
And then Hubbard being your last pick. I know he doesn't have a good resume here, even though I believe he's made all 4 cuts. But he has seemed to play a little bit better. It's not like he's, look, if this was one of those fields in the fall, you could see him winning. That, the way he's playing.
Yeah, Hubbard came 75th at the PGA last week. He did that despite losing 5.4 strokes putting. So the ball striking stuff was actually pretty good. And you just look longer term. Hubbard is the 12th best bent grass putter in this field. So I'm not worried about the putting. And then his 3 events before last week, 11th, 18th, and 27th. So he's playing pretty well.
Yeah, and 2 of those got the RBC, 11th and 27th at Wells Fargo. So yeah, and you're getting 180 to 1 on a player like that. And then some of the other long shots that I mentioned at the top that I'm going to be throwing some money on. I'm going to definitely put a buck on Samuel Stevens, first time playing, like Badia, second at Texas, also third at Punta Cana. And so, and then why not go back to Suh? You know, he's coming off that really good week at the PGA earlier this year, 6th at the Players, 5th at the Honda. So, you know, those are 3 tough golf courses that he's played well. He, of course, playing here for the first time. And the other guy that I'm putting a buck on is Eric Cole. Again, first time he's playing. He's trending in the right direction. 15th at the PGA Championship is extremely impressive. Second earlier this year at the Honda. 5th at Mexico. And you're looking at a player that has gone from 5 years ago, he was over 2,000. He was in the 800s 4 years ago, 700s 3 years ago, 300s 2 years ago, and now he is 103rd. So he just keeps getting better and better. And I figure those are several guys that I was this close to putting them on my board, but I just figured to stay away from that because I think it's going to be it's going to be kind of hard looking at the trend of first time winners and playing here for the first time as well.
Yeah, I like the Cole call. He almost made my list. I think it's a good course fit for him.
And while you get your voice back, Palmer. Let's got some other long shots. Palmer at 110 to 1, coming off that 8th at what was that, Byron Nelson a few weeks ago. He has some decent showings here, three top 5s over his career. So I think he's worth probably a buck as well. This kid Vincent Norman, playing here for the first time. Similar rankings kind of resume the last 5 years, even though he's not in the hundreds yet. He's in the 300s, but he's on the trajectory you're looking for. Last 3 events, 2 top 20s and 1 top 10. That was the 8th at the Byron Nelson. So he was a little bit interesting to me with the big number. And then even though, he missed a cut last year, was 3 over par, didn't have a great finish last week. Matter of fact, he really tailed off. But, this Stefan Jaeger, you just get the feeling that it may take him a fall event to do it. But, you just get the feeling that he's gonna pull off he's got a ton of KFT wins. He's going to get a PGA Tour win soon.
Yes, Jaeger was a guy I looked at. I wanted bigger than 60 to 1 on him. That's why I didn't get to him. Ben Martin I looked at, 150 to 1. Had been playing really well in a few months ago. He was on a good stretch, but his last 3 tournaments have kind of been underwhelming. But I think 150 to 1 is a pretty good number for Ben Martin.
Yeah, he's made all 5 cuts here. 2 top 25s, 1 top 10. So, but he hasn't played on this golf course since 2018. We talked about his history a few weeks ago when you took him 1 week. Also, I was kind of, Brendan Todd is an interesting player to look at because he was in his last 2 years here, very impressive, 3rd and 8th, and he's 10th in course history the last 5 years and 5th on your par 4 stats. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good combination. The problem is he's just not anywhere near playing like he did because Todd is a player that he gets off to a good start. I think if I can recall his career, he had gotten off to a good start, disappears for years, comes back a couple of years ago, and it looks like he's got it, and now he's kind of slipped back. Not all the way where he was, but he's just slipped back to being more like, a 100th ranked player. He's 72nd in the world right now, but he was 8th at Wells Fargo just a couple weeks ago.
Yep. That makes some sense. My guy, Callum Tarrant, is 300 to 1. He came 29th at the PGA last week. I was watching a bunch of groups come up. Number 4, the long par 5. We probably watched 15 groups. He was the only guy to reach that green in 2, and he hit his second shot to like 10 feet. Missed the eagle tap in birdie, so I was happy to see that from my guy, Callum Tarrant.
He is trending in the right direction, so not a crazy
300
idea.
to 1.
Yep. 300 to 1. And, I'm interested in how this Marty Dew guy plays.
Oh, yeah.
He's 5th at Byron Nelson. He's 200 to 1, playing here for the first time. So, I'm going to keep an eye on his trajectory. And maybe he's a guy that will eventually. You haven't taken him yet, have you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last time out was kind of the first time he even popped on my radar.
Putnam also, I believe, is on your stats.
Yeah, the short par 4s, I think, right?
Yeah, and he has 3 top 20s in 5 appearances, including a third 4 years ago. He's just not playing very well.
He's actually on both my lists now that I look at it. He's 9th in course history and 6th on the short par 4s. Hey, what about Michael Block?
Michael Block.
400 to 1.
Well, what's up? Well, first of all, who the hell is Michael Block? I mean, really, by the way, is he from the area?
No, he's a pro out in California.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what is he? I don't even understand what it's. I mean, he hasn't played at all since.
No, he's a
club pro.
They call him club pro. They get 20 of them in every year. They almost always miss the cut. He happened to have the 4 rounds of his life.
Yeah, good for him. I know he's on the what is he, 400 to 1? Did you say?
400 to 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
You might as well be 1,000 to 1.
He has the same odds as Kevin Kisner.
That's embarrassing. Yeah, I'm looking at his resume here, and it's his first non-missed cut since 2015, and his previous best result was 69th. So there you go. Michael Block at a 400 to 1. Save your money.
Good story, though.
Yeah, and good for him. Because when did he finish? What was his?
When did he finish?
What was his finish? I
mean? He came T15.
So he gets to come back.
Exactly. That par save he made on 18 got him in next year's PGA Championship.
Good for him.
Yep.
Because I don't know, how much money did he make?
It was 200 something K, 288K or something like that. Which is,
put that in a
good for him.
Investment. You're never going to make that again. All right. Yep. So that will wrap it up. Memorial next week. And as we said at the beginning of the show, there's going to be a full field. So it'll be even bigger than this. Some guys will skip, but for the most part, we see John Rahm again and all the other boys that we're not seeing this week. So that's going to be cool. It's a nice stretch. There were no duds, right? I don't think there were any duds until after the Open Championship. Or maybe even not the rest of the season.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, we're in a good stretch now. I feel like we're, at least halfway through the year, which is kind of sad. But this is a great stretch of golf coming up for the next 2 months now.
Yeah, because even when they go over to the Open Championship the week before the Scottish Open is going to be nice.
Yep.
Yeah, just taking a look at it. Well, you got the John Deere.
I guess that's the down week.
The Rocket Mortgage John Deere combo.
Yep.
That's the next. Oh yeah, that's the next one. And then you got then it kicks off again with the Scottish Open and the Open Championship, and then we only have another couple of weeks before the playoffs begin. So, yeah, it's gonna go quick, but it is. It's okay. I mean, this is what you want, before football season. You want to be distracted by this type of stuff. And this is going to
This will
distract
get us to
us.
football. Yep.
So
for sure.
All right, Jared, appreciate it.
All right.
And want to let
Thanks,
everybody
Greg.
know that you see that logo on top of the screen. It says Draft Sharks. Well, Jared and I know we've hinted at it, but we are going to be doing a lot more fantasy football coverage this year, including a new dynasty league that we're setting up. So, I just sent out all the invitations, the invites. So nobody's got back to me yet. So
give him a couple days.
Yeah, I know. No, I told everybody they know they have time. So, but anyway, we're looking forward to that, and we're going to start with some programming as early as next month. So that should be real cool. No later than like first week of July, because that's meat of the season for fantasy football drafts. That's for you guys, right?
That's when it starts picking up. Yeah, I mean, I think most folks draft in August, but yeah, I mean, camp's open midway through July, so yeah, we're getting pretty close.
Yeah, it goes by fast. This will be the only dead time really between now and training camp.
Yep.
All right, Jared. We'll see you next week. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Greg.